Good evening, everybody. I'm just going to do a quick sound check before I officially get started. I am just waiting for all latecomers to arrive. There is on the right-hand side of the screen a control panel, which is part of the GoToWebinar control panel software. If you can use that, you can see there's a questions tab and also a chat tab. You're able to ask questions throughout this evening. I'll be jumping in and grabbing all the questions together at the end, and we can do a full Q&A session. But if I could just get you to just confirm, you can see the property investment event red slide in front of us, and also hear me correctly just by mentioning in the question area, yes, I can hear you. That would be great. So I'll just get you to do that for now if I can. There's been a great turnout for this evening, but if I could just get a few of you to do that. Thank you, Wayne. Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Peter. Lots of you. Thanks, Carolyn. How are you, Nathan? Jessica. Wow, they're all coming through. Michael, how are you tonight? Adam, Kim, Kathy, Natalie, Rob, Sylvia. Wonderful. Thank you so much for doing that. It's so nice to have you on the line tonight. Just waiting for a few more to come through. I just had a reminder email sent out just to get a few stragglers. Really nice and welcome, warm welcome to those of you coming across from Which Property Investment Magazine, which previously is and associated with Smart Property Investor. I've been working with Russell over there and some of the guys for a few years. We did a wonderful email on their behalf this week out to those of you who follow Which Investment Property Magazine, which is an online publication. So welcome to this evening. There's a lot of you who are regular attendees and obviously users over here at Ripehouse on the line as well. So this is a regular Thursday night webcast. Cover off what I've sort of been seeing in the market, some growth regions. I usually generally pick a different area each week to focus on, which is either prime for capital growth, great cash flow, or renovate for profit type strategy. I'm obviously going to be doing that tonight, but I guess the bias and focus of Ripehouse is towards DIY property investors. So I'll be going into a lot of detail about how DIY property investors can invest across anywhere in Australia at a suburb, street and property level and be very sure about what they're doing, assessing value, potentially buying below value and really nailing the next purchase against what they're trying to, what you're trying to achieve and a DIY property investor is trying to achieve against their longer term strategy. So just covering off tonight, I'm going to do a quick review of some of the recent research and news desk here at Ripehouse. Location, condition and comparables. I'm going to be doing, just setting the scene, how can we potentially invest in remote markets that we're not familiar with? How can we assess location, condition and comparables to establish market value and potentially buy below market value? Then I'm going to be looking at the Logan area in Brisbane, which is an absolute stellar candidate for capital growth in the second half of 2015 and beyond. So much focus at the moment from many different angles, investor communities and expert opinions, etc. How can we make it work? Because stock is starting to clear very quickly through these suburbs. How can we find the absolute cream of the crop streets and properties, make that work? How can we pinpoint the exact streets to invest in and assess value? And then I'll be talking about the Ripehouse community and how the DIY property investor can work with each other to help each other in tonight's event. So feel free, you can actually click on the GoToWebinar control panel, invite others. You can invite anyone you like if you think a family member or friend might find interest in tonight's content. It's not too late, so get them along. You can also use the hashtag Ripehouse on Twitter to form a conversation, and I'll be jumping on Twitter after this evening and continuing the conversation. So you can jump on there and ask any questions and talk to me directly through hashtag Ripehouse. So without further ado, thank you so much for coming along. I will be covering off a bit of housekeeping and a bit of introductory material, and then I'll be jumping right into the meat of how to potentially, as a DIY property investor, invest in these fast-moving markets for great capital growth upside and great cash flow for the second half of 2015. Do stop me. Do jump on the chat or questions. If I do start talking too fast, I do get really passionate and right into what I'm talking about, and maybe you might sort of not catch everything I am saying. So do hold me up if I am getting a little bit carried away. And there will be a recording and the slides from this evening sent through via email, so watch out for that. So yeah, if you need to take notes, the recording and slides will be coming through after the event. Moving right along, my name's Jacob Field, and I founded Ripehouse as a website and tools for the DIY investor in 2011. Purchased my first property over a decade ago when I was 19. Now I'm property across Australia. I really think the key here and what I'm talking about is I believe I'm a DIY property investor. So I really believe in investing in my own education and empowering myself to purchase, to educate myself, to analyse and critically analyse previous purchases and really move forward with my investing life and future. I suppose the emphasis for me is learning and thriving and building a network and talking and experimenting and really trying to build on each particular property into the next. And as part of doing this process, I've flip-flopped. When I mean that, I haven't flipped properties and sold them, etc. And that's my strategy. I mean, I've gone in one direction and realised I may have gone too far in that direction. I've had too high a focus on capital growth, negatively gearing without focus on cash flow. I've been tied to my job, etc. I've then gone in the other direction and overcompensated. And it's been a process of learning. And each property I've purchased, I've had to critically analyse what it's done to me, my family, and where I'm standing, and am I getting closer to my goals or further away. So I was able to stop my full-time work a few years ago on the back of my property portfolio. Now sort of venturing into subdivision I'm doing up at Newcastle, which is hard to manage. I'm based in Tasmania at the moment, and I've got a young family. But then Ripehouse is a coming together of technology, which is what I love, and property investment and helping and communicating and working with other DIY property investors, which is what I love to do. So just a little bit of background on me. At Ripehouse here, look out for our Ripehouse Learning Centre, which is www.ripehouse.com.au/learning. We have a blog on there. We have regular reports and ebooks, lots of content that we produce, and the webcasts come through there as well. So definitely check out the Learning Centre. And hot off the press in the next few days, we are putting the finishing touches on it, is our quarterly Best of the Bunch Growth Area Report. So this is doing a full roundtable of states, where each state's placed on the property clock. We're going in-depth within each state. We're ranking the top three, and within those top three, we're looking at individual regions. So is Sydney still hitting the peak, or is regional New South Wales potentially the best place? So we go down into those regional levels. That's just New South Wales as an example, and reveal information where the individual regions are on their property clock. And then when we find the most upside, the key regions that are in the nice firm recovery parts of their phase, moving into growth, how do we find the key suburbs that are driving that growth in those regions, key streets and key properties? So in that report, we go all the way down from state, region, suburb, street and property, have a comprehensive analysis of the absolute best of the bunch for Q3 and into the last half of the year. Look out, it's been a few weeks in the works, or about 6 weeks in the works. We are getting close to our new feature release, which are flood zones. So we can see visually on the map where flood zones are located. Key flood zones across Queensland, Brisbane, and further north in coastal areas. But the key is where properties are located in those flood zones and how much you would expect to pay in the same suburb if you're in a flood zone or out of the flood zone for different property classes. So that's coming out soon. Look out for that. That's our future roadmap of key functionality. We're always updating and providing improvements to our software. And the big improvement, I will be actually using our new server tonight to demonstrate any software or any tools that I'm using. And that's ready to be the go button pressed on that server over the weekend, which is really going to supercharge and improve the performance of what we do here. So recently, look out this Sunday with Kevin Turner at Real Estate Talk. So I'm featuring on 4BC with Kevin. I think he mentioned about 8:45, but it may be a little bit before that on Sunday morning. Recently, we were covered in Property Observer by John, the editor over there, a few weeks ago. And look out for us in the next little while around a feature that we're having in a key magazine across Australia, which I won't reveal anything about at the moment, but just look out for that. It's going to be an amazing eye-opener to a new way of potentially looking at investing in property. It's going to be something to really worth and look forward to in the coming couple of months. So that's just a little bit of a roadmap of what's happening here at Ripehouse. I want to start seeing the scene with how we can pinpoint and invest in the key markets for the most capital growth upside anywhere across Australia. And that's all coming back to becoming a local area expert. When I sort of say that as a DIY property investor, I'm talking about if you have grown up in a suburb and you've lived there all your life, you know the ins and outs of the suburb dynamics that you live in, you know where the owner-occupiers live, the tenants, you know where rents are really going through the roof, you know where tenants are demanding to live and where the yields are the highest, you know where all the schools and shopping and transport are, and you may know where things like crime and public housing are really predominant and affecting prices negatively. You may know all the negative effects on the suburb, the tip or whatever it may be, and you know that as a local. How can we gauge that type of knowledge, that type of local area expert knowledge for every suburb across Australia, get really confident when we hear about a suburb and targeting a suburb, and it might be over in Brisbane or we're based in Sydney, etc. How can we be sure we're buying in the absolute key streets in that suburb for our strategy? And our strategy may be capital growth fundamentally, or cash flow or flipping, renovating for profit for sale. Independent of those three strategies, which are the key streets in that suburb to really amplify our upside? And there may be individual streets or different streets for each of those strategies. So how can we find those sweet spots? And that's what I call being a local area expert, being able to find the different things in a suburb that are going to affect price and being able to correlate it back to price. So this is just a taster. This is 3 graphs relating to 3 key amenities in a suburb, how close a property is located to these key amenities, and how that location will affect the appraised property value. So this is for metro areas across the whole of Australia. It's a standardised graph here just to demonstrate the patterns that we've seen at Ripehouse. Ripehouse, we've tracked for sale, for rent and sold listings for the last 3 years, and we've aggregated those like a search engine as in Google. We've captured that data, and now we've mapped it to the geographic locations of key transport hubs, schools and shopping. And we've mapped that relationship back to price versus meters from each of those things. We did this for quite a few other amenities as well. So we did this for doctor's surgeries, chemists, hospitals, parks, cafe precincts, restaurants. There was some relationships that was a little bit patchy, different for different types of concentrations and densities of suburbs. The big 3 and the far and away big 3 amenities, key amenities to be close to, that link to price and appraised value for property are these: transport, shopping and schools. And you can see the graph here. The red line on each graph is the average price. When you're right on the doorstep of transport, you're above expectation against price. When you're a kilometre from transport, you're at the sweet spot. That's key transport train hubs. Schools, right on the doorstep's not such a good thing, but 250 metres is the absolute sweet spot. After a kilometre, you're falling off a cliff there with property values. And shopping is one where it's sort of quite steady up and down out until about 1,250 metres, then it drops off a cliff. So as long as you're in that sort of K range, you're not doing too badly, but there are very specific sweet spots for each of these, and there's a dramatic increase or decrease in price based on the location of these key amenities to the property. So it's something to keep in mind. Now, another big one that we have here, we've mapped at each street level the concentration of public housing per street across Australia and mapped it to prices. So you can quickly see the level of public housing in any street and relate that back to property. Public housing is a funny one because we've seen with our research that it correlates very closely to higher volatility in investment. So while the suburb around it might be going up in value at 10% a year or whatever it may be, the public housing concentration or the high public housing concentration might actually stay neutral and not move over that whole period of growth. It may be a dead spot in that growth. On the flip side, and I have seen it in areas of Dubbo, is a really good example in northern Western Dubbo, where the actual public housing was gentrified further and far exceeded the capital growth of Dubbo over the same period, but that's a really rare exception. And I will actually be touching on that concept tonight in Logan, and hot off the press today in talking and working with an individual investor. So shout out to Tanya if you're on the line. Tanya did mention that she did speak with the council there in Logan, and they did mention that public housing may be moving out of the area, but I will talk to that and the potential timelines for that to occur. And I'll be sort of extrapolating that and applying it to lots of other suburbs. So it's not just occurring in Dubbo, in Logan potentially, but how that might affect things. But the real key here, public housing potentially lowers street appeal in the street. It potentially holds it down there and creates unstable tenancies, lower standard of tenancies, higher vacancy rates, and the inability to drive rental increases in line with the suburb overall. So you may be left with that dead zone there. Based on the numbers and our analysis and research here again, expect to pay 25% more than the suburb average if there's 0% public housing in the street. That's obviously average across all major city suburbs. And when there's 18% or more public housing in the street, expect to pay 20% less than the suburb average. So a really key indication there of the effect of public housing on property value. Key takeaways. It's about developing that local area mindset. So thinking and looking at the certain things that are going to amplify your upside and minimise your downside. So it's not just amenities and public housing. It's things like where are tenants demanding to live, where are they paying higher rents than average, where are the yields better, where are the owner-occupier enclaves that may affect vacancy rates and tenancy demand. Where are the higher values? Which streets are the hot spots and the cold spots in terms of values, and which streets potentially are growing in value faster than the others? That's the type of information that as a local area expert you can potentially capture and monitor and just know and take for granted. But as a DIY property investor, how can we adopt that mindset, scale it across the country, and then apply it really quickly in a very clean, effective daily process so we avoid spinning our wheels and analysis paralysis? How can we make really clear and concise decisions every day so we can negotiate and position our conversations with the agents with certainty? We can leverage negative aspects and we can find relevant comparables to a property. We can assess market value with confidence. We can potentially negotiate under market value, and we can compete in these fast moving markets with great upside against experts, buyers agents and professional investors in the market. How can we compete with them as equals and really nail the next purchase? So this is what I'm sort of going to be talking about and illustrating in this conversation. Moving along, first point of call is location is one thing, and I'll be demonstrating and really drilling out into the exact locations to focus on in any suburb and how to dissect that. So we've got location, how that affects appraised value. We've got the condition of the property, and then from the condition of the property, we have to find actual valid comparables. So comparables based on that condition. From those comparables, we can assess market value, and then we can use some of the location elements and the condition elements and the sale, the agents' advertising and marketing to potentially negotiate under market. So talking and teaching those strategies to potentially negotiate under market is what I'll be also focusing on. But it does come back to assessing condition of property. And when we do that, this slide here is very obvious. It's making sure that we're assessing the condition of the property against other properties in the same suburb. If we're looking at a property in Mossman, obviously we have to compare it against the standard of properties in Mossman. This one on the right here is Mount Druitt. So two polar opposites. It's a Sydney example here, but I'm just trying to illustrate that basic point that we have to assess the condition of the property based on the suburb overall and find relevant comparables. In assessing that condition, I'm sort of trying to show a little bit of a methodology that I use when looking at internet images. We can do this across any suburb in Australia. We can view the images as long as we have a standardised way of doing that to assess condition. Based on that assessed condition, we can find valid comparables for the property. So I don't get too complex at a higher level of due diligence at the first stages. I'm just putting the property into poor condition or unrenovated, average or good, or off the plan type condition, putting into those three buckets, and then we can find valid comparables in those three buckets. And in doing that, I'm sort of getting a sliding scale between, is it street appeal, is that nice, it's the first impression, a kitchen, bathroom, modern or unrenovated, original condition, or they're brand new and fully, high-level white goods, etc. Poorly presented for inspection. So, are there current tenants in there, and is it cluttered and has a controversial furniture scheme and funny things all over the place? And is that detracting from the property itself and therefore compromising the marketing strategy and process for the agent? And can you leverage that to negotiate under market? So assessing that condition and not just assessing the condition, but also the marketing strategy from the agent. Viewing in, is it painted in nice white, bright colours, or is it compromised with dark floor coverings and walls? Extras is a high set, low set in Brisbane, heating and centralised heating, parking, storage, etc. And then you've got block sizes and bonuses with sort of things. So I'm basically getting each images and each property I'm looking at. I'm gauging each of those things on a sliding scale, and then out the end of that scale, that process, you can be very formal in that process or very informal and just monitor it in your head, I suppose, going through and just spit the property out the other end in one of those three buckets at this point is the process. Moving forward, just quick examples. I won't take long on these, but assessing poor condition in low, average and high socioeconomic areas. Poor condition in low areas, you've got boarded up windows, you've got public housing in the street, you've got burnouts, you've got no front fence, no landscaping, very original kitchen, hasn't been touched for 40 years, you've got tenants or very badly presented for sale and right through. So just getting a bit of a feel for the different suburbs there. Average condition in a low socioeconomic area, you've got tidy, it's no renovation at all, but presented quite well for sale and no compromises on the property, potentially quite neutrally presented, and that's probably the key theme through here, neutral presentation and tidy presentation, but nothing that's wow or even renovated in a lot of cases. It's just very well presented for sale. And examples of good condition, so fresh kitchens, bathrooms, nice bright airy colours. You've got really, excellent floor coverings, polished floorboards or floating floorboards in low socioeconomic areas. I've got an example here, low socioeconomic area. It's still good condition, and I probably would access it in good condition if it a very tidy 20-year-old bathroom or 15-year-old bathroom. That would still probably be good condition in a low socioeconomic area. So this is just three examples here of the differences in assessing condition in different suburbs. I suppose the key is here, if we can get the properties into these three buckets, we can go away and we can do the same process for comparable properties. We can tick that box, yes, this is a comparable, and if it is a comparable, we're going to be able to use it as a comparable sale, take the sold price and be very sure of the potential sale price of the property that we're actually looking at. If we have to be comparing apples with apples, and I'm just trying to teach a bit of a framework for doing that tonight. So moving along, let's just jump into these right tools. So some tools that we can use, I will be demonstrating some tools within Ripehouse that you can use to become a local area expert and then quickly find properties that are really matched to your strategy in the locations, the sweet spots for capital growth and yield. So I will be using capital growth as our primary strategy tonight, yield as a secondary strategy. So we are really making a capital growth play. I will be focusing on trying to find a property that's unrenovated, so we can, and I will be talking about this particular strategy in Logan at the moment and the potential for numbers and growth and profit in 2015. But I will be using the local government area, Logan local government area. We do a lot of work here at Ripehouse with Terry Ryder from hotspotting.com.au, and I love the work that Terry does in his hotspotting reports. So he does an amazing level of research. He does an amazing level of research, both at a numbers level and then at on the ground, talking with local governments, councils, seeing what the employment, infrastructure, population improvements, amenities in the suburb are, and putting a 10-page due diligence sort of summary together about each suburb in his reports. Logan is right up in his list at the moment across the nation and also obviously in Brisbane. It's a great area of focus. So I love what Terry does. You might hear Logan mentioned by other industry experts, John Lindemann. I know, speaking with someone lately who's been talking with John about Logan as well. It's popped up on the radar in the media a couple of times in the last couple of weeks as well. A lot of focus. You've got low purchase price, and you can easily find, or not easily, but the average yield in a lot of these suburbs in Logan will show positive cash flow right off the bat. How can we buy in these fast-moving markets? So there's a lot of eyeballs on these markets at the moment. There's a lot of upside. How can we become local area experts and avoid analysis paralysis, and then actually purchase? So quickly assess value for individual properties on the market and potentially negotiate quickly, position for sale, and get the vendor over the line quickly in these markets. So that's what I'm really going to be focusing on as well in this analysis. I will mention just a couple of big sort of red flags or things we need to focus on. Logan's low socioeconomic, so 300k purchase price will get you into most suburbs in a average to poor condition. High yield, so we need to really look out for things like dead spots and public housing dead spots, but then also maybe infrastructure dead spots and where we need to focus on for the key drivers of the potential growth. So I've just skipped forward there. I do apologise. That was a sneak peek. I'm just going to be opening up another tab now. So please let me know. I will be switching over in 1 second to another view. It's called the page title is My Suburbs within Ripehouse's the website. So please let me know if you haven't actually seen that in the next few seconds. It might take 15 seconds to come through. Please let me know if that doesn't come through. But I'm basically starting here. This is within Ripehouse. You've got your own shortlist suburb selection. You've got quick lookup KPIs for each of these suburbs. So you can track the suburbs that you're looking at on a daily basis. And you can come back and analyse these anytime you like. And you can see things like average sold price. These are rolling 3 monthly figures, so very up to date. Average sold price, average yield, crime rate, most in-demand property type. So what are tenants and owners demanding to live in right now in the suburb, and average days on market. So really quick look information there. You can see public housing percentage, number of renters, rent versus income, vacancy rate, distance to CBD, number of dwellings. So lots of quick look information. You can add any suburb to your list here, and you can actually also search across Australia for your particular strategy, which suburbs are going to be rated the highest based on your strategy. So if you had a flipping strategy, it will show you an ordered suburbs anywhere across Australia or down to your catchment area based on suburbs that have a high proportion of owner occupiers, lots of houses with a large price differential in property values for those houses. So giving you a large price spread to profit, it's going to rank the suburbs in that order. Cash flow, it will rank the suburbs in order of yield, and then it will also have it will only include suburbs in that order by yield if it has a minimum rental turnover and also a maximum or below vacancy rate. So we're sure we're getting the markets that we're actually going to be able to achieve rent in, and not the markets that have good yields but very high vacancy rates. And a capital growth, the big one with the key, when we're looking for capital growth and trying to find suburbs that have the most capital growth upside at Ripehouse, we don't look at previous 10-year growth. We don't look at 10-year growth patterns to try and predict what's going to happen in the future. We draw a line in the sand today. We look at potential, there might be causes in the suburb, and that sort of goes into in a lot of detail with someone like Terry and his reports about what the potential causes are in the suburb to create growth, infrastructure, population, employment, etc. We look at those causes, but we look at the effects in the market today. Are sales volumes spiking or trending upwards? Are days on market stable and decreasing? Is rent per week increasing in short-term trend? And when you see that those things combined, it's demonstrating that the cause is now having an effect, and that effect is the higher potential for short to medium-term capital growth. And we rank suburbs across Australia based on those metrics. You can find the key suburbs in your catchment area, in your price range, in your tolerance for crime, like socioeconomic factors. You can shortlist those suburbs and then conduct your due diligence, put them into your shortlist, and then you can monitor them daily. Just jumping in. So we've got analyse Kingston. We've got Kingston and Logan Central here in my shortlist, which is in the Logan Central. There will be a few points I'm going to make tonight that I haven't made in recent webcasts, just coming out of a lot of the conversations and actual on the ground work that we're doing in Logan at the moment. The big sort of standout and one of the key drivers, if you sort of check out Terry's reports, are infrastructure. So the train line coming through Logan, but there's high public housing. So Woodridge here in the north actually has areas of compounds of 50% and plus of public housing, very high public housing. Logan Central itself has high public housing. But what I think we need to focus on here through Logan is focusing on this train line. This is the key artery through the suburbs. And if Logan Central itself is, once we've found the key streets to focus on, doesn't have enough stock on market in these key streets with their absolute investment sweet spots, which suburbs can we flow down through the chain and have be becoming local area experts with the key suburbs in Logan, so we can make daily decisions. And according to this logic, we've got high public housing over in these areas through here, lots of dead spots in Slats Creeks and Woodridge. We've got Logan Central, we've got Kingston following the train line, and then out to Logan Lee, which is the next suburb out along the train line with its own train station there. I'm just making all these points, so I did skip ahead a little bit here. The page I'm using here is the Ripehouse Suburb Map Analysis page. There's so much information on this page. It's integrated into the software here at Ripehouse. You can spend literally half an hour getting so intimate with the suburb, so much information to come across. What you can see here is you can see Logan Central highlighted as a suburb border. You can see the red icons as individual properties on the market. So Ripehouse has a search engine that goes off like Google and aggregates search listings across the internet. It has about a 24-hour delay in finding new listings, but it also tracks the full listing history for every property. So it gets full days on market data. I've just brought up the table list here for properties, but you can see these properties here with the 6% next to it. It's actually been discounted by 6% in its listing history. So it started off life 235, on the 10th of May it came down to 219. So you can track that for every property on the market. Really key information. You can even order properties based on their discounting amount and target the properties that are most likely to be in vendor distress, and really negotiate hard on those. You can order them by days on market and find the properties that are becoming stale listings, or you can obviously order them by price and which fits your buying criteria. Yeah, great way to quickly familiarise yourself with the market. But I think the absolute key to gauging price in a suburb are the quartile pricing. Down here in the bottom left-hand corner, you've got the lower quartile price, 219, the suburb median, 280, the upper quartile price, 324. Now that's really key information because according to our research in these types of suburbs in metro areas, that loosely correlates to unrenovated, average condition and renovated. So you can see when I've actually put that, we've done the condition assessment on a property and put a property into three buckets that loosely qualifies to that quartile pricing in a suburb, and you can actually work out the price differential. So if you actually buy on the low side the unrenovated property, you actually buy an unrenovated property, you can assess value for unrenovated properties and you can see what your price spread is going to be if you renovate through that quartile pricing. And I'll show you in a minute how we can put on filters in the suburb to see how that price spread changes for different property classes. One of the key things to note in these suburbs through Logan, there is a bit of a blurb that pops up when we first load the suburb, but I'll click on this View Suburb Report button here, and that's going to give us a lot of quick look information. It's going to tell us 3-bedroom houses are most common and in demand. We've got a comparatively high number of renters in the suburb, very low crime compared to the state overall, but above average concentrations of public housing. So a bit of red and green flags through there. We can view quick look suburb metrics on that pop up, and also lots of visual map-based information within the suburb. But I just wanted to know that's the first bit of information I want to know about a suburb is what is currently most in demand by tenants and owner-occupiers. Currently it's 3-bedroom houses here. We don't want to be buying a 2-bedroom house. We don't want to be buying a 4-bedroom unit, a 1-bedroom unit, a 2-bedroom unit. We want to be focusing on the key commoditised property in this suburb. It's going to give us a lot of stock on market, potentially a lot of turnover, lower days on market. It's going to give us a property type if we purchase that a lot of other people are demanding, and it's going to help our capital growth. It's going to help our vacancy rates and future rental increases. So that's the first key. Now I want to firstly see the price spread for 3-bedroom houses. I usually clump 3 and 4-bedroom houses in together. I've got a bit of logic around that, but it's a whole other webcast. So definitely tune in for next week or the week after. I'll cover that analysis and how 3 and 4 bedrooms are the same. In a lot of cases, low socioeconomic areas, how you can sort of group them together in pricing and appraised values. But at this point, I've clicked on the filter properties button. I'm now just filtering and seeing 3 to 4 bedroom houses on the market. And why I'm doing this, it's now got 16 properties on the market. I'm actually now looking at how the price spread changes. So it's now gone from 329 upper quartile down to 298. So what we've automatically seen here is the price spread is actually reduced. Not as large a price spread between unrenovated and renovated. You're only putting 30k on the property if you're putting 10k into a reno on the low side. You sort of see this in low socioeconomic areas with a narrow price differential. And this is one of the key topics I wanted to cover tonight. Some other potential suburbs through Logan where the differential is still larger. So when you start seeing a market move from a buyer's to a seller's market, days on market are decreasing. There's a lot of more buyers coming into the market and competing in the market, which is sort of what's happening in a lot of these markets through Logan at the moment. The difference between unrenovated and renovated starts to tighten and close, people start overpaying for unrenovated properties, just to get into the market, and you're not getting those bargains, unrenovated properties to spend. And I've sort of seen this a little bit here with Logan in the last month or so, that the price spread is tightening, and a lot of those unrenovated properties are starting to sell more for the sort of average sort of price. So to that end, I'm moving down through Kingston. Kingston's a very similar suburb to Logan Central, but another suburb 2 stops down along the train line is Logan Lee. I'm going to click on that suburb there. I'm going to load it up in the map page here. It's telling me that 38 properties are currently for sale. There's a comparatively high number of renters. Once again, 3-bedroom houses are most common. Above average concentrations of public housing once again. We've got the uni just over the road. We've got the Logan motorway. We've got the M1 just over the road here. We've got the train line, some key schools in the area. This is all the reasons that are included in Terry's report and his feedback. I'm going to do the price spread once again for 3-4-bedroom houses, just to get a bit of a feel for things. Same process. I've basically moved down into Logan Lee now because the price differential, which you'll see in a moment, is larger. Days on market a little bit higher. You've got the capital growth potential with the region and also the train line, but you've got a price differential now of $319 through to $425 for 3-bedroom houses, 3 or 4-bedroom houses, and there's 25 on the market. So now I've got a really good feel for price, but I've potentially moved through to a suburb now where I can actually buy low, I can renovate. I could potentially buy at that low 300s, I could spend 10k on a reno, I could push 30, 40k onto a appraised value for the property, I could potentially pull that equity out, but then I can also look at the price spread for rents as well. So on the lower quartile, unrenovated rents are usually 323, median rents in the suburb are 350, and upper quartile rents are 380. So potentially I could buy at that low 300s and then renovate and then rent for 380, and my yields on investment are going to be, much higher because I'm leveraging that strategy. So that's a bit of a play I'm seeing here in Logan Lee, Kingston and Logan. It's a play that I'll be making in these low socioeconomic areas, buying unrenovated, renovating with just a cosmetic renovation, just tidying up, freshening the place up, floorboards, maybe refacing kitchen, bathroom, vanity, that type of thing. Just spending that 10k just to move it through the quartiles and get it closer to that upper quartile price, and then being able to charge premium rent and have the excellent yields on that purchase price in these types of suburbs. So that's why I'm sort of making that illustration, moving through those suburbs. I would equally look at Kingston and Logan Central as an example, but the key now is to become local area experts in these 3 suburbs so we can look back every day very quickly, focus our attention on the key streets that are going to be demonstrating and amplifying our capital growth upside. So I'm looking for streets to start with that have lots of tenancy demand. So where are tenants demand to live, but not too many tenants. So we still need a critical mass of owner-occupiers to stimulate that improvement of property and improve street appeal. So we need a nice balance there. We need to set our tolerances for tenancy demand. We need to find the high areas of public housing and potentially avoid them. We need to seek out the areas of rent and high rent and high yields, and potentially focus on those streets because they might be increasing the rent per week for the suburb overall, and that's one of the key reasons why we're actually coming to the suburb in the first place. I want to be seeking out the areas where tenants are demanding to live in 3-bedroom houses and not tenants demanding to live in 2-bedroom units, which are not so much in demand in the suburb. So I'm making sure I've got the tenant and house mix nice and right. So I'm going to be doing all those things and trying to find the sweet spots. Ripehouse is very powerful, and it has overlays where you can actually click onto the map areas in the suburb at a street level, which will show you exactly where things are located. So each of these areas in the map here relates to 200 dwellings. The larger the area, this one over here, the less dense the concentration. In this particular case, the overlay here is around public housing. We've got 16% public housing overall in the suburb, which is quite high. The areas of darker red here have high percentages of public housing. So this particular area here has 44% public housing. I can click on any of those areas. It brings down the information from the top, 6.4% yield, etc. These areas down here, 17%, and this very lightly shaded one, 8% public housing. So you can see exactly where that is. You can see exactly where the yellow areas are here, which is where tenants are demanding. The green areas, owner-occupiers. Properties, you can see the yellow here are units, the green are houses. So you can see the correlation. You can see exactly where things are. You can see where the higher rents are in purple, the higher incomes in purple, and the higher yields in yellow. So you can see that the average yield in the suburb is 4.7, which is pretty good. You can click on the darker the yellow areas here, which is 6.4% area yield. So you can actually seek out the street areas in the suburb that are going to give you the most yield, and you'd expect to have the most yield. So that's where tenants might be demanding, where the rents are higher, lots of tenancy demand are driving those yields up. So you can focus on the absolute key streets in a suburb that are going to deliver against your strategy. And then you can actually have a custom overlay toggle or pop up here, which is going to allow you to set your tolerances for certain things, set against, say, a capital growth strategy in this example to demonstrate the areas in the suburb that are going to give you the most upside and potential. Each of the horizontal areas relate to one of the metrics I've just talked about. The slider here you can adjust, and that changes your tolerance for certain things. So you can cap out your street. If you only want to invest in streets that have 20% public housing, you can set that there. Occupancy type, if you only want to invest in streets that have 50% tenants, example, or less, you can set that there. Or you can click these badges up the top here to set default tolerances for these key messages. You can start off here with a capital growth strategy. I'm just going to open things out a little bit. I'm happy to wear 20% public housing in these low socioeconomic areas. I just want to avoid the very high public housing areas. I have a 30% minimum as far as tenants. I don't like to dip into areas with less than 30% tenants. You're going to find owner-occupiers rule the roost. Tenants might not be demanding those streets. It might be good for a flipping strategy, and that's a polar opposite generally. But in this case, I'm going to be focusing on the areas with 30% or more tenants. We want the areas with lots of houses. So I'll set that there. You know, I take the time definitely to go through, and there's a lot to this in setting these tolerances. I am skipping through it a little bit. I'm seeking out median rents of 380 or above. I'm seeking out higher incomes, and I'm seeking out areas that have, what are we going to set it at? 5% yield or above. You can see as I'm changing these tolerances, the areas that will be selected are over here on the right. As you close that up, those areas get reduced, and they all fall through the net downwards. And what is left over are the areas currently selected. So you can save that custom setting there, and you can load that by default every time you come into the suburb, and that's going to save you time. You've become an expert once, then you can rinse, repeat this every day. But if you apply this area selected now, it's going to have 5 areas that are going to be applied to the map. And I love it when I see 5 areas that are close to each other in this way. So you can see them heavily biased towards a potential area in the suburb. They're clustered together, and people are living and paying to live in these areas of the suburb for similar types of reasons. The key now is filtering properties based on their location in these areas. I've clicked on filter properties again. Now I'm going to be filtering this to only show me properties located physically in those sweet spots that we've now identified. I'm going to apply that filter. You can save that filter once again, and that'll be loaded by default when you load the suburb overall. Now we've got 7 key properties that have matched our exact requirements in our local area expert knowledge, and the price spread for those is now 315 through to 560. So it's actually widened in that smaller sample. You can see a couple of real outliers here, so 560 and 600, they might be sort of quite unique type of properties. I'm really looking down here at the nuts and bolts, so 309. I'm going to click on that details there. We get the current images for the sale. I'm now doing my condition assessment. I'm looking at street appeal, kitchen, it's tenanted. It looks a little bit cluttered. It's probably, funny window furnishings there. You've got an unrenovated bathroom, kitchen, unlandscaped garden. Everything about this property is reasonably neat, but it's compromised a little bit by the presentation with the tenant and the street appeal. I'd probably put this and most likely put it into the poor basket. Just on my quick assessment there, I will skip through this a little bit quicker now. We can see the descriptive text here by the agent. Ripehouse goes off for every sale that's currently on the market, and we have an algorithm that looks at the sentiment used by the agent, and it compares that sentiment used across other properties in the suburb and actually automatically assesses the condition of the property. It sometimes gets it wrong, so when it does, and I do disagree with it in this case, I'm going to override it and select poor condition. But when, with our algorithms, it's more likely to go away and find comparables for you quicker that are going to be in a similar condition, and it's going to save you time in the comparables process. If we assess that as in poor condition, it's going to go away and find comparables that are also deemed in poor condition. We can see the full listing history, so it hit the market on 18th of April for 309. We can see suburb level information, so average for sale price, for rent price, for sold price, days on market, volumes, vacancies and yields. We can see a rolling last quarter number and also a rolling last year number, and we can see the trend. So all the directions those numbers are heading into. We can see area level information, so exact street level information around public housing, rent, income, occupancy type, property type, and yield. We can jump on the comparables tab. I will skip through to that. It's going to go away and it's going to find the top 6 comparables that are in a similar condition, same number of bedrooms, similar location, and we give a strict priority to last 6 months of sale. It's basically going to order those here. It's going to give you the top 6. One here is jumping out at me. It's outside of the range of the other 5, 421. My job now is to assess condition of that property, and you can see it's far superior. Very quickly we can see it's a far superior type of property and it's not a valid comparable. So I can actually remove that from the list. It's going to bring in number 7, and my job is actually getting this range of properties nice and tight, and I'm owning this process because this is a real key here to negotiating with the agent. If the agent's actually using that property there at 421 as one of his comparables or her comparables, she's going to be using that to dilute the asking price for that property and really put focus on that upper part of that property. If you disagree with that and you say that's not a comparable, I think this is a more valid comparable, that's going to put you in a position to negotiate with that agent remotely. And that's going to put you in a position as a local area expert to get that traction with the agent, so they're more likely to go to the vendor and negotiate on your behalf to accept what you're offering. So that's my strategy. I'm leveraging the comparable process. I'm taking and owning that process. I'm removing comparables that are not valid, and I'm going to take those comparables to the agent and ask him to dispute them, because this is fair market value. We can take those through into the appraisal stage. It's going to average those 6. It's going to show us how the distance and adjustment from the distance to school, shopping, transport, public housing is going to positively or negatively affect or adjust the appraised value, and spit it out the other end with an appraised final appraisal, asking price, estimated rent, and estimated yield. You can click that into a report and you can take that and compare it with the agent or other properties. So you can see the end-to-end process here. Really powerful. We've got some suburb level filtering, so you can see the exact higher capital growth areas in the region. So the darker the blue, higher the capital growth score is for the suburb. In this case, the darker the green, the higher the flipping potential is for the suburb. And we can also zoom out and we can click on this cash flow toggle. So the darker the orange in this case, the suburb has high potential for high yields and great low vacancy rates. So you can see lots of information here. You can actually compare each suburb against its closest 10 neighbours, so you can see price disparities. You can potentially pick out ugly ducklings, and you can move through suburbs quickly based on which suburbs are around it. You can also, there's lots of other functionality. I won't go into it all. You can add any property that's not on the market to the suburb, and so you can actually monitor your own portfolio and track appraised value for that. Is it around public housing? And you can check the health of your current portfolio by adding properties to the map. You can see all for sale for rent properties on the map as icons. You can see all sold properties in the last 18 months on the map and the sold price that we have in our database. So huge amount of information here, lots to take in, I know, but it's all about saving that custom area, your filtered properties, and only looking at the key 7 properties in that market and becoming an expert on those. Just a little bit of a demonstration. I know there was a lot to take in there, and I do apologise about getting right into that. I'm on hand, as I say, at the end for any questions. I'm just flipping over now to the slides once again, so please tell me if you can't see them. In a few seconds they'll be coming through. But I'm on hand for any questions if there's anything you'd like to know about that page. That's the real nitty-gritty of Ripehouse. That's where you're becoming a local area expert. It's got all the tools in there to be able to do that. And it's been able to use those tools effectively each day to process and become avoiding that analysis paralysis and acting with certainty so we can purchase in these fast-moving markets. If we're able to actually zoom into those suburbs, we saw Logan Lee there, we could assess value very accurately, we could find that unrenovated property, execute against our strategy. It's in a key street with great drivers for capital growth, great drivers for yield and cash flow going forward. We'll seek that out. We can focus on only those streets and really block out all the noise, come back there every day, and we can really pounce on any opportunity that comes to market in those suburbs. That's what it's all about. I'm just going to summarise that whole process. It's about becoming a local area expert, finding the sweet spots, knowing the dead spots, avoiding those, and assessing value based on that location. It's about then assessing property condition and making sure we do that relative to the suburb. Then once we've got that condition, finding relevant comparables, actual comparables that are being sold in a timely manner, so recently, similar condition, similar location. Are there any location-based adjustments, dead spots that we need to factor in? What is fair market value? And then can we use the local area information, the listing history? Can we see a distressed seller who's discounting their property? Can we assess condition and disagree with the agent? And can we find comparables to really position the conversation with the agent to potentially buy below market? That's the process. That's the summary. That's also detailed in more information in our Buyer's Guide to Property Investment publication, which is on the Learning Centre there, www.ripehouse.com.au/learning. And I also go into lots of detail about how to assess suburbs, streets and properties and relevant to your strategy in our Know Your Property Strategy ebook, which is also in the Learning Centre. So there are 2 publications there which detail this process and in a lot more detail. So check them out. Moving ahead, the Ripehouse Community, which is the tools here and the research that I've just demonstrated, is all about the DIY property investor and helping us work together to achieve a lifestyle, I suppose, and the retirement or the goals that we're actually trying to get out of property. It's helping us to achieve that together. It's about this private members research that I've sort of talked about and touched on. It's about pulling it all together and making sense of it and learning together and processing with help and support using our, we've got integrated live chat support in the pages, we've got phone contact support, email contact support, and at the end of this webcast, I'll give you my personal mobile number to contact with any issues. It's about case studies and looking at individuals' needs and breaking that out and learning together about what people are doing and sharing that information. And it's about these weekly webcasts and special events that I host where we can join together and avoid spinning our wheels. So we're all going to be joining together as DIY investors to compete in markets that we might have had difficulty buying in but have huge potential, and we're competing with lots of buyers agents or professional investors that are focusing in across the country on these areas. Let's step up our game and really work together to buy successfully in the absolute sweet spots, which is probably a lot of information that a lot of these buyers agents, etc., might not have, especially if they're looking with eyes outwards into these suburbs they might not be familiar with as Australia-wide buyers agents. Let's compete and work together to buy in these markets. It's about empowering ourselves with using the right tools and improving our due diligence process each day like a professional would. And then this is a key component of the whole equation, nurturing each other. We have at Ripehouse our property partner groups, which is joining you with 4 other investors trying to do a similar thing, moderated by myself and my staff in conversation. We have a private group chat area where you can ask any question, receive any answer from us and from your fellow investors in the group. We have regular 2-hourly chat sessions where you can ask any question, we can process and focus on each individual in a round table environment. And then we have bi-monthly mass catch-ups where we'll focus on really advanced strategies and working together to achieve them and sharing some success stories. So that's our property partner groups. Let's bring it all together by nurturing each other in these exclusive groups, which is part of our community. It's making us accountable to our goals. It's about processing the new learning, anything we're finding and applying. It's about supporting and advising each other in private conversation. And it's about thinking bigger and motivating each other to dream and move towards our goals. This is all part of the Ripehouse community, and I just wanted to touch quickly on here a bit of feedback I've had recently from Guy. Guy recently bought in Woodridge in Logan, just north of Logan Central there. We were able to negotiate. It was on the market for 289 down to 271,500. Forgive me if the numbers are wrong there. There is actually a video on our YouTube channel I filmed with Guy and talking about the property he bought and how he found Ripehouse in doing that. He found the advice excellent, and the brilliant website helped him negotiate the purchase. Donna and Cassandra there in the middle really loved our recent functionality improvements. We're always improving and listening to what people are, how they're using the software, how we can improve, and we roll that out very quickly when we find an improvement. And Andrew there on the right recently purchasing cans. I won't go into too much detail. Excellent yield there. We negotiated, or he was able to negotiate the property based on comparables at 28k under fair market value. Kansas has got some nice upside as a rural coastal area, obviously in northern Queensland. So a little bit of feedback there from the community and the members. Do get in touch. I'd love to hear from you tonight about how you found the content. But Ripehouse is a subscription service, and our annual subscription is normally $797, all inclusive of everything you've seen tonight and I've demonstrated, the learning, the tools, and the property partner groups. As a thank you for coming on and extending this thank you over to Which Property Investment viewers and those who have taken the time out to listen to me tonight and take in what I've talked about. As a special thank you, I'd love to offer you a $200 discount off that annual price, bringing it down to $597 per year. And just to make sure we're all working together and getting off to a flying start, I'm opening myself up for one-on-one DIY investment coaching. So using the software, using your current position, analysing what you're doing, where you need to go, what you need to do, using the software via Skype, phone, email, whatever it takes to process, to become local area experts together, to find the absolute key markets against your strategy across Australia, then finding individual properties, learning, working out and appraising those properties, and then having conversations with agents. So I'm on support all the way through that first purchase. So that's a special offer for the next hour only, the one-on-one DIY investment coaching with myself as part of that annual subscription. So that annual subscription down to $597. You're able to lock that subscription in. So I will be sending an email after the event with that discount offer. You can lock it in there at www.ripehouse.com.au/discount for 1 hour only. Be sure to go down the page a little bit. You'll have a big green Join Ripehouse button, which will lock that special price in for you. And you will receive that email to your mailbox shortly as well. So once again, $200 discount, one-on-one coaching with myself. And I have touched on Terry's reports over at hotspotting.com.au. I think they're an invaluable resource in becoming and really understanding the growth drivers for these regions anywhere across Australia. And to that end, I'm going to include for the next hour a free report from Terry valued at $77. So he'll give you the top 5 suburbs, say for Brisbane, for rural Queensland, for Sydney, etc. All of the key markets that you'd like to focus on. We can refer to that report in our one-on-ones together with me. Really get us off in focusing on the key markets for growth. So that's for the next 1 hour there as well. You can lock that in once again there at www.ripehouse.com.au/discount. We've got integrated into the page live chat support for any questions, phone or email support, which you'll get the details in a moment. And all of this subscription, Ripehouse's payment is provided and secured by PayPal. So they enforce your account and any problems you have, and the 30-day money-back guarantee, which is supported and enforced by Ripehouse. Just so you know, Ripehouse is a tool where it's for the DIY property investor. If you get to the point where you need to go on, you need to engage a buyer's agent. You might pay for the privilege, and generally buyer's agents do an excellent job, but they may charge up to $10,000 or around generally $10,000 for a property purchase. Especially in these low socioeconomic areas, that constitutes a big chunk of the purchase price. If Ripehouse is not for you any time in the first 30 days, no questions asked, money back guarantee, and potentially a buyer's agent might do the job in that regard. But Ripehouse is a community of DIY property investors, and we can do it together. And I put myself on the line with the one-on-one investment coaching to work by your side in not just using the tools, but looking at what you're trying to achieve and really executing that together to nail that first purchase and really get you moving forward towards your goals. So I really do thank you. I'll take a deep breath. As I say, I do start talking a little bit quickly from time to time. I'm going to open the floor up now to anyone who would like to ask questions. If you don't want to stick around, I'm just going to say, thanks to everyone for sticking around and coming, time out tonight to attend. I hope you found sort of what I've covered interesting and an eye-opener to a different way of looking and potentially investing in these absolute key markets for growth. You can contact me on jacob.field@ripehouse.com.au or my mobile there, and that discount link down the bottom again. That video doesn't click through, and if I play it here, it doesn't actually have audio, but definitely check out the Ripehouse YouTube channel for that video feedback there from Guy and how he purchased in Logan as one of you as a DIY investor. Opening the floor up for any questions, and don't forget that offer is expiring within the hour as a thank you to everyone for coming. So I've got a question here from Kevin about public housing data, and I mentioned 20% as I don't want to invest above the 20%, and you just mentioned that seemed quite high. To summarise, yes, it does seem quite high, but the suburb overall had 16%, I suppose. 20% is a number in low socioeconomic areas probably is my tolerance and maximum tolerance. When you start having more than 20% public housing in any area, you're going to start to see effects or negative effects on street appeal on properties, pride of ownership, etc., and pride in tenancy. You're going to have your tenancies compromised, a lot of the negative aspects around public housing really start to kick in above 20%. 20% will be astronomical figure for a higher socio-economic area, and therefore you decrease the tolerance. So higher socio-economic area, bringing that down to 5% or even lower, is sort of engaging the suburb. And I sort of generally bring that tolerance in. I want to include around 25% of the suburbs overall. I want to rule out the top 75%. So I'm definitely looking for those dead spots. Sorry, I want to remove the top 25% of public housing in most cases as the dead spot in the suburb based on that public housing, and focus on the higher street appeal associated with the lower public housing in other areas. Yeah. Actually, there's another question here from Marie, which is very similar. How do you make the decision as to the level of public housing you'll accept in the area? Yeah, the comparison, and you make the point, the comparison to the graph is generic. So that's across all suburbs in Australia in metro areas. My general rule, sometimes, Erskineville's inner city metros in Sydney, you've got very, very high clusters of public housing, 80% public housing on some streets. A lot of regional areas as well, you see high levels of public housing. Generally in that 300 to 400k purchase price, you are starting to put that 20% restriction on. 300k or under, you're dealing with the very, rural areas, low public housing, and you've got sometimes 30% public housing, or even up to 80, 90% public housing in some streets. I sort of relate it back to price, probably 500k and over in Brisbane as an example. I'm looking down about 5 to 10% public housing as an absolute max. And then if the purchase price is higher than that, or the suburb average is higher than that, bringing that down. Again, it's a fluid thing based on how I'm gauging the suburb, and how I'm going to gauge that suburb will handle that level of public housing. It probably comes back more to the level of areas that I'm actually taking out of the mix by applying that public housing number. Just another question here around crime. Our crime data, there we go. Thank you, Jessica, for the great feedback. No worries. Mark, I'll get to your question there in a moment. In regards, we currently work on an annual subscription that's around the community, and the community focuses on the annual subscription and being able to offer the nurturing and the learning aspects to that process, and opening the software up for that year access to be able to continue through and potentially buy multiple properties is the concept. The other question getting back was around crime, and where do we get our crime data from and how we relate that back to suburbs. So we have crime level data at a suburb level across Australia. You're able to filter suburbs that fall into different crime ranges. We've sourced that data from, in some cases, government sources, in some cases, New South Wales, Sydney, Perth. Very easy to get that type of data. In other cases, rural or Tasmania as generally, which is where I'm based, is very, very difficult. We actually had to work with academic sources to get that data. And we had to get that standardised across Australia to be able to offer it, but it is accurate down to that suburb level across Australia. Incidentally, Tasmania is a funny one. The closer you are into the CBD in Tasmania, the higher the crime rate. Further from CBD Hobart into rural areas, the lower the crime rate. Basically, it's a reverse correlation in all other states. So you saw there that even though Logan Central was low socio-economic, it had low crime compared to Queensland overall, because a lot of the rural areas through Queensland have very high crime rates. So it's all relative. It's all mapping it back to a metro area, but just a little bit of critical information, I suppose. Any more questions, feel free to pop them through via email. Definitely jump in. I'll stick around here if any of you've got further questions after I stop the broadcast. But I'd love to hear any feedback you have about the event, and I hope you found it beneficial. Thank you, and I'll talk to you soon.